Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse April 3rd, only on Netflix.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network, and you can follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/@RamsUpPodcast. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined often by my football guru, Ian, along with a bunch of other friends of the show on occasion. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome back, Ram fans. Mark from Rams Up here. Got a Rams Up update for you, April 2nd, 2025. Ian and I talked about the rule changes that were on the table at the league meetings, and they made some decisions, and they tabled a few decisions. I'll go through those for you real quick, and I'll get through some Rams news and notes as well, as I always do. And before we get started, this will be episode 696 on the podcast. Weren't a lot of interesting players that wore that number. I already talked about James Hall. And man, what a character he was. And if you remember that fight between Chris Long and his brother, when his brother was with the Bears and James Hall was in the middle of that, turns out they were all three really close friends. And Chris Long has a great discussion about that. Pretty entertaining. Go find that on YouTube. But I'm not going to talk about James Hall again or the other guy that wore number 96. I already talked about Doug Barnett. Talk about real quickly here, Matt Longacre, defensive end, 6'3", 265 out of Northwest Missouri State. He was a Division II first-team All-American in 2013 and 2014. His team, the Bearcats, won the Division II National Championship in 2013. So he goes undrafted. Rams bring him on board in St. Louis for that first year, and then they come to LA, and he follows them. Eventually earns a spot in the rotation, and he was a decent player. He finished his 4-year career with 6.5 sacks, and my memory of Longacre is not so much his production on the field, but I remember being at the Irvine practices training camp. I went the last day of that year, the year that they they brought Sammy Watkins on board. And I remember standing on the sideline there watching the team go through their drills. And I found myself obviously standing next to Matt Longacre's parents. And it was quite entertaining just watching those two smiling ear to ear, watching their son earn a spot on the Los Angeles Rams. But Matt Longacre, decent player, very short career, pretty prolific college career, Division II, but he's my number 96 for the Los Angeles Rams. Hey, I wanted to revisit my the little gig I did there on Underappreciated Rams. Got a lot of comments, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to touch base on, I think, every player that various commenters threw out in the comment section there, guys that they think I missed. One was Greg Bell, ran for 1,000 yards 2 times for the Rams, not too shabby. Billy Waddy, an overlooked wide receiver, 6 years with the Rams, 1,700 yards. His biggest mark was really made in that Super Bowl against the Steelers, 3 catches for 75 yards. David Hill, great blocking tight end. The commenter said that he was one guy that could take care of Lawrence Taylor for you. He was the younger brother, by the way, of the great longtime LA sportscaster Jim Hill. Now, Hill, Waddy, and Bell, I don't know if any of them really qualify as underappreciated. Maybe Bell. Then there's John Franklin Myers. Hey, he was with the Rams for just 1 year, and he's a guy that I would discuss if we're talking about players that the Rams gave up on too early. And I think I did a little spiel on that a while back. Went on to have a much better career with the Jets, and last I heard he was with the Broncos. I don't know where he is now. And he actually had a Super Bowl moment as well, causing a Tom Brady fumble in that Super Bowl. The Patriots, unfortunately, were able to cover that, though. Hey, Carl Eckern was mentioned, and the Rams had 3 linebackers in that era: Carl Eckern, Jim Collins, and Mel Owens, and they were all pretty darn good. Didn't get a lot of recognition. None of them were, they're kind of in that, well, I wouldn't say in the James Laurinaitis stratosphere, but maybe a notch below. But certainly all 3 of them would qualify as underappreciated. So I would go along with that. Irv Pankey, the offensive lineman, I agree. A lot of great Rams offensive linemen over the years, and maybe Pankey is a guy that doesn't get the kudos he should. Henry Allard, hey, Henry Allard's not underappreciated. I think we all understand, where he sits in the as far as Rams' great wide receivers. He's right there, right up there at the top. And then Tony Horn, I think any of us that watched that Greatest Show on Turf, that era, certainly appreciate Tony Horn, but I get it. Maybe he should be celebrated a little bit more. Jerry Gray, yeah, I could see that. I certainly could. If I did a version 2 of this, I'd probably throw Jerry Gray in there. Someone mentioned John Cappelletti, and I'm going to have to disagree on that. 2,200 yards over 5 seasons. And hey, if you're talking about, the memories that he created after winning the Heisman there, that speech about his little brother, man, that's pretty good stuff. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go find it on YouTube. John Cappelletti giving a shout out to his little brother who was struggling with with a disease, and Cappelletti breaking up in tears during that speech. Willie Miller, Isaiah Robertson. Robertson was probably the most complete linebacker to ever put on a Rams uniform. And I guess he's probably, he probably needs more recognition on the national level, but I think most Ram fans get it. But version 2 of this, I'll throw Isaiah Robertson in there. Charles White, the USC running back, 4 years with the Browns, comes to LA, rushed for over 1,300 yards and 11 TDs one season. Barry Redden, I'm not buying Barry Redden. He was basically Dickerson's backup. And then there's Woody Strode. We've talked about his acting career. Bernie Casey, 6 years with the 49ers, 2 years for the Rams. So I'm not going to call him an underappreciated Ram, but I was unaware reviewing him. I didn't remember who he was, to be quite honest. And he had a really prolific acting career. So in that respect, maybe underappreciated. But hey, he was a 49er for 6 years, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about him. And by the way, Woody Strode, breeze through him real quickly. He played a gladiator in the great movie Spartacus. So check that out sometime. Jeff Kemp, I guess, I saw a trailer on a story recently about the legendary Ram quarterback Jeff Kemp. And I'm sorry, I'm not buying that either. Underappreciated, perhaps. If we're saying that he was a decent quarterback and doesn't get recognition for that, then okay, I can roll with that. Bob Lee. Now, Bob Lee was a guy I'd forgotten about as well, and he is one of 12 quarterbacks. Let me make sure I get this right. One of 12 quarterbacks to post a perfect quarterback rating in one game and a 0 passer rating in another, and he's the only one to do it in the same season. Fullback Mike Guman, and then some other names: Henry Childs, Mike Barber, Aaron Cox, and Preston Denard. Some other names thrown out there. So good list. I appreciate everybody chiming in. And hey, we'll do another version of this another day. And I'll try to keep these notes for next time. Improve on that first list, perhaps. So the rule changes that Ian and I talked about the other day. No more push tush. That was tabled. Surprised me, but I'm sure there's some pushback from certain quarters, and I don't blame them. Hey, the Eagles, from their perspective, we figured it out. We know how to do it. We do it well. We're using our players to, accentuating their skills, putting their best skills to use, and it works. Teams struggle to stop it, and they want to make it illegal. So I can see that they're not going to rush into this and change the rules. I still think maybe they will. Maybe they'll tweak them a little bit. Maybe find a middle ground where you're allowed to have one 300-pound offensive lineman in the backfield or something. So they're working on that still. The overtime rule was changed, but it's still only 10 minutes. In the playoffs, it's 15 minutes. But both team gets their hands on the ball. What I don't really like the 10-minute aspect of it, because, one team can really drain the clock and put some points on the board, really put the other team up against it. The playoff seeding was tabled. I thought that would just get shot down. So the Lions and Vikings trying to work that apparently, so that, we discussed this the other day. Upset that the Vikings with the better record had to go on the road to play the Rams. But hey, if the schedules are not totally 100% balanced, there's no need to mess with the playoff seeding. Ian and I both agreed on that rule. The kickoff rule was changed, so touchbacks will come out to the 35, and that's going to increase the number of kickoffs. It's going to be really exciting. It's going to be much more stressful, I think, especially, if you score late to take the lead. This has been the way of the NFL for some time. Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited if you're up by 2 points with, let's say, 40 seconds left. Better not kick the ball into the end zone. You might regret it. And then the onside kicks, they're going to tweak that. The problem they're having with the onside kicks is just the way it's working out right now. Just 3 of 50 onside kicks were successful last year, and the way the way the rules stand right now, they're not likely going to be very successful. Really takes the surprise onside kick has pretty much disappeared from the game, right? So they're not sure what they're trying to tweak, but they're trying to bring that back a little bit, apparently. So I'll get on to some news and notes here. So first of all, Kyren Williams, Drew Rosenhaus, and the Rams are working on his contract as we speak. Hopefully, his potentially a new contract. Now, this is what I'm predicting. This is how this is going to go. They're going to work on it. They're not going to come to a decision, and it will, continue on into the season, and maybe they'll figure it out at some point. But this is not going to get solved real quickly, I don't think. And Kyren, I think he's his initial contract, not getting paid a whole lot for his production. He's looking for perhaps his only payday, and are the Rams willing to give him that? I don't see it happening real soon. I hope he stays in LA, but it's going to be a little bit painful for us fans watching this unfold. Now, Sean McVay was trying to defend, or actually he did defend the contract given to Tutu Atwell, and he talked about, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. I talked about this exact thing. When Tutu had his chances, He was very productive. If you look at his yards per snap, he outperformed Demarcus Robinson, wasn't even close. He got his chances, he performed, and he's improved on his route running. Sean McVay saying he's really matured. He's only, how old is he? 24 years old. Yeah, let's keep this guy in the house. He's took a gigantic step last season to being the type of receiver we were hoping we were drafting back then when we drafted him. And I know that's a painful day for a lot of Ram fans, but I agree with Sean McVay. Go look at the stats. Atwell could really blossom even further this year. Glad the Rams kept him. Rob Havenstein had shoulder surgery. They called it a cleanup of some issues he was having, and he should be good to go. And, some of us have been thinking about the players the Rams might move on from, take the hit, dead cap wise, guys like Darius Williams. And I think Rob Havenstein was also mentioned along with Tyler Higbee. I think Havenstein's here to stay, and I'm glad of that because the Rams haven't even addressed the backup tackle situation unless there's something I don't know. There's a player in-house that they're really happy with, McClendon, KT Leviston, who to me is looking more like a guard than a tackle. Maybe he's a swing guy. What they're doing at the backup position, hardly ready to move on from Rob Havenstein, and that's good news. And Lance Zierlein, the NFL analyst, he's my favorite. He does really good player analytics and analysis on the site, compares draft prospects to players currently in the NFL and past players as well. I just think he packages things together really well. And I like sticking with one analyst because you get some consistency, hopefully, from player to player. He published his mock 3.0, and from the Rams' perspective, I did not like it. I did not like what he did. He had the Rams trading up from 26 to 21 with the Steelers and drafting a guy that really is being pigeonholed as a nickelback, Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Now, this guy is going to be an incredible player. Don't get me wrong. Athleticism through the roof, but he has some limitations. 5'11", 198, I think. He has the speed. He demonstrated that, but I still don't think he's going to be able to play on the outside. And I think that's what I don't think the Rams are interested in a strictly nickelback type player. I could be wrong. I mocked this guy to the Rams once early on, and then I did a little bit more reading on him. And whoever drafts him is probably going to be extremely happy, but I don't think that's, especially moving up. At 26, I'd feel a little bit better about it. And if the Rams and Chris Shula think he's going to, fill a role on this defense and make this defense better, then sure, I'm all for it. I'm not going to second guess Les Snead if they pull the trigger on Barron, but trading up for him, I'm not sure I like that. And bear in mind that the guys on the board that they passed on, tight end Colston Loveland, this is Zierlein's draft, of course. Colston Loveland was still there. Chargers grabbed him one pick after the Rams. A bigger, longer, faster, well, I shouldn't say faster, a bigger and longer tight end, Siobhan Revell, was still on the board. And just for informational purposes, Jackson Dart was on the board, and he went number 32 to the Saints, who made a trade out of the second round with the Eagles to grab their next quarterback. They're another Ole Miss quarterback for the Saints, and that might work out well for them. So the other day I posted a poll, what is your preferred draft strategy for the Rams? One of the options was stand pat, grab the best player available. Another option was, hey, let's do what it takes to go up and get an impact player that's going to help us make a Super Bowl run. And I identified 4 guys that you're either going to stay at 26, maybe move up a little bit for, not a whole lot, not surrendering too much to go get these guys. And 4 different positions, 4 guys. And the first one I wanted to talk about was Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. And this is a long, lean, dynamic cornerback that can hang with big number one receivers on the outside. Lance Zierlein calls him a boom or bust player. He's his number 14th ranked player overall. Not going to be there at 26. Now, in that mock I talked about, they had the Rams moving up to 21 to draft Jahdae Barron. Barron, the great cornerback out of Texas. Now, two different types of players. Johnson, more of a one-on-one, in-your-face cornerback. Barron, super dynamic, can make plays all over the field, and he's probably going to play in the slot. Really good against the run, though, and I would love for him to be on the Rams as well. I just think Johnson is the one you move up for this defense. If Barron's there at 26, I have to give him consideration, though. I think wherever Barron ends up, that team's going to be really, really happy with him. The next guy I want to talk about, another guy that might last to 26. It just depends on how these wide receivers stack up. Matthew Golden out of Texas. You got Egbuka out of Ohio State, McMillan out of Arizona, Luther Burden out of Missouri, and Golden. I guess you can include Travis Hunter if teams see him as a wide receiver. Where do these guys stack up? How are teams evaluating them? One of them is going to slip to 26, I would think. In the simulations I ran, is probably 50-50 that Golden would be there. And the pecking order of these guys on various draft boards seems to change on a weekly basis. I like Golden, 5'11", 191, by the way, for his big play potential. Did it over and over and over again. He can be impactful at all three levels: short game, route running. He can get vertical, and as you see on the tape, kind of saving Ewers a few times, making big plays on underthrown balls. So he's a wide receiver I'd like. Now, if one of those other three guys are there, sure, give them consideration too. But Matthew Golden's kind of growing on me. And next up, maybe he's a booby prize, Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, if you can't get Tyler Warren. Now, Daniel Jeremiah has Loveland as a 7th ranked player overall, just one spot behind Tyler Warren. So some teams may even like Loveland more than Warren. I don't think he's going to be there at 26. Some of the simulations I ran, he was, and he could be there in the low 20s. Maybe you jump up and grab him. Hey, I love Tyler Higbee, but I'm not thrilled with the rest of our tight ends. Loveland would be an answer this year and for years to come as well. So I would be happy with that move, drafting Colston Loveland, maybe moving up a little bit for him, not giving up too much. I'm not trying to jump up into the low teens to draft Colston Loveland, but I move up a few spots to snag him if the Rams love him that much. Jeremiah, by the way, compares him to Sam Laporta, so let that sink in for a minute. And the last guy, one most likely to be there, is linebacker Jahad Campbell. That's right out of Alabama, and he's Jeremiah's number 9th ranked player overall. But linebackers, they're going to slip a little bit, right? I suspect he'll drop into the teens, possibly into the 20s. The simulations I ran, he was there 90% of the time at number 26. And he's not the perfect linebacker, but what he is a fast sideline-to-sideline pursuit guy. And that's what this defense has been lacking really since Ernest Jones, right? So pair him up with Omar Speights, Nate Landman as the backup, grab another guy, find yourself an undrafted rookie or maybe Tony Fields, and you're set at that linebacker position. And those two guys, Will Johnson, Jahad Campbell, one of them, you're not going to get both, but either one of them would really elevate this defense. I think cornerback's probably more important, and I'd probably take Barron before Campbell if they were both there. But elevate this defense for sure. And then Golden and Loveland both have similar traits in that they can threaten a defense at all three levels, one from the wide receiver position, the other as a tight end. So those are the 4 guys I would be thinking about. Not giving up too much if you need to move up and get them, or if one of them is there at 26, guys that are going to help us this year make a Super Bowl run. And I'll take another hack at this in a few days. What we do if we want to drop back a little bit, what we might be looking at, or just absolutely not moving up, who is realistically, seriously going to be there at 26 without trading. And then we'll maybe look at making the big plunge, giving up a few picks, moving up into that top 10, and who we might be targeting, who we should target if we did that. I don't think that's in the cards for our Rams, but hey, why not take a look? That's what we'll do next time out here from Rams Up. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.